Welcome back, STOMP Wrestling fam. Boy, we got some breaking news for you guys today. But before that, it's MPKH, filtered, unfiltered, whatever persona I feel like using, and I might use a bit of both today. Then I got Mr. No Days Off, Mr. WrestleDrop himself. And today we're here to talk about one voice of the voiceless, one CM Punk. Because apparently he has some backstage heat, according to sources like Fightful Select and Sean Zap Ross, I think. But let's get straight to the video. Let's talk about it. What are we saying about CM Punk's? What about CM Punk's heat? Eesh.
It's surprising, but not surprising. It's surprising because we thought WWE was the issue, but it's also not surprising because it seems like Punk may have some issues of his own. Might not be all one-sided, like we have been led to believe all these years. So, expected but unexpected.
Eesh. It's very tricky on my side because I didn't expect it to come like right now. Also, the promo that he had on Dynamite, the recent one against Moxley, apparently the first bit was was unscripted, where he called out Hangman Page for a rematch. That was not in the plans.
Apparently, but at the same time, the plans were for Hangman to be his first opponent at All Out, barring there wasn't an injury. So what do you believe? You know what I'm saying? They wanted Hangman a rematch at All Out. Now he's calling him out again. So maybe it's just trying to reset the timeline. So maybe it was meant to happen.
Before the injury started, I wonder how you would have built it up, really. I really wonder.
I think it would be fairly easy. Someone turn heel eventually or someone turn face. In between that time.
And I definitely say Punk is most likely going to turn heel.
I think it's coming sooner than we think.
Also, there's a recent tweet from Jonathan Coachman's replying to Sean Ross. He was like, wait, I haven't watched in a long time. CM Punk walk out on a brand. Gasp, shocking, lol. Now, obviously, if you don't know what that is, that's sarcasm, ladies and gentlemen. I think he's not surprised about that. He really isn't.
Someone who was in WWE during the time when Punk was there, I think, if I'm correct. So maybe he knows more than what we do. Or I know for a fact he knows more than what we do. Maybe it was a bit of heat from this side, heat from that side. Not just all WWE like it's led to believe. So he's not just going to change because he moved to AEW. It's going to be the same person. It's interesting.
But
it's interesting.
I want to know, how is CM Punk feeling unhappy? Because, I mean, why is he feeling unhappy? Because he's the world champion.
That's what I'm thinking. He's main eventing. He's the world champion. It was a great build-up for him to eventually get there. And
exactly.
The only feud I can remember him losing is MJF. So
yeah,
what's there for him to be upset about?
Yeah, that's personally it.
Or is there plan for Hangman or whoever to go over it all out? Is that the plan?
Oh, I really am not sure about that.
Is this why? Here's a question. Is this why the Moxley versus Punk match has been brought forward? Because of this beef.
Oh.
Maybe there's like real beef. They worried about Punk actually walking out because he's done it before. So maybe they want to end it as quickly as possible. Moxley go over next week. And then Punk has nothing. They've got nothing to worry about if Punk walks out because he's not the title holder.
Yeah, and I also think if CM Punk does lose to Moxley, it would just take away from all the toxicity that's gonna eventually spread in the AEW locker room.
Maybe that's what happened.
I think that's what Tony Khan was trying to say. You know what? I'm gonna push this match for next week, then All Out. And I'll make Moxley versus somebody else, or Punk if he does win, versus somebody else.
It's very possible. It's very possible, but we don't know. We don't know how true these reports are, how accurate they are. Is it being blown out of proportion? Was Punk just a little bit upset? Because Brock Lesnar allegedly walked out a couple of weeks ago. So, you know what I'm saying? Is it blown out of proportion?
Also, Sasha and Naomi walked out, and they got tons of heat.
They actually did. I'm trying to say,
and then
Brock allegedly walked out. Punk allegedly wanted to walk out. So that's what I'm saying. Is that blown out of proportion? Sasha and Naomi, they actually walked out.
No, but the difference is, now the reason why I bring them up is because I don't see from what I've seen, I don't see a lot of the same energy being kept, if you know what I mean. Like, if you're gonna be calling Sasha and Naomi unprofessional because they felt disrespected and mistreated, then, which, by the way, they were, and they had the reasons to walk out, why not keep the same energy for CM Punk? Because we know this is a recurring pattern with him. Not to say don't take this as we're CM Punk haters. We're just holding him accountable because we've seen this over the years. We really have.
No, we have, and I think we've swayed towards defending Punk in the past. Simply because it's a one-off situation where there might have been beef with him and management. But when you move to a different company and that same situation carries on, then there's clearly one side or one variable that's always the issue, which clearly in this case is Punk.
Mm-hmm. Also, I do know that when he did come to AEW, there had to be some adjustments. Like the big one I'm going to address was Colt Cabana not being shown on TV on the same spotlight as CM Punk. That is a definite must.
At all.
If you don't know the full Colt Cabana CM Punk story, then sure, you just gotta look at their podcast and the lawsuits. Yes. No, but not at all. Not Colt Cabana does not appear at all. But it's just whenever. Cabana? Jesus Christ, it's actually been long. Oh.
I think in the initial phase he was on TV every now and then, but that was more of a Tony has to put him on TV because it would be very obvious if as soon as Punk comes in, Colt Cabana's gone. So it was more like we'll bring him in and then we'll phase him out eventually. Because now he was on the ROH pay-per-view. He was on Death Before Dishonor on the pre-show. That's the only time I've seen him. So it's an interesting situation there. He probably suits ROH better, but I don't think that's the reason he's been shoved there.
Not really. Well, the whole Punk Cabana thing, that's a different story. And it's very tough. But the situation right now is what happens if CM Punk eventually does walk out, or he stays and things get worse and worse.
I think if Punk walks out, the fans turn on Punk. I'll be honest. These AEW fans are the same fans that hate on WWE. So they can't be hypocritical, or they will be hypocritical, and now hate on Punk because they love AEW. If they start hating on WWE, what are they going to watch? Because they won't watch the indies because it's just who they are. They'll act like they watch the indies, but they won't.
Really? They don't.
Exactly. So I think people will turn on Punk at the end of the day. Probably rightfully so. If you think about it, with all the backlash he's given WWE, you got to question how much of that is from his side only.
Is it a case of him making himself the victim, or are some parts of it true, or is he leaving out a lot of information?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, 100% sure, a lot of it is true, what he says. But how much of it is he leaving out? And how much of it is he making himself the victim?
Really, I don't know.
We
Because
don't
if
know.
you look at, because I do know with his injuries back then, they weren't being nursed and taken care of. That's what led to Punk leaving. Also, the environment, how unhappy it was. Yeah, that's what stemmed to Punk leaving WWE.
No, I agree.
And
But something tells me if he was main eventing WrestleMania, he would have nursed those injuries. He would have forgot about some of the issues because he was getting what he wanted the whole time. You understand what I'm saying? Because his whole thing was that he didn't get a main event WrestleMania. He wasn't put in the spotlight he should have been. All of that. I feel he would have nursed a lot of that if he got given what he wanted. Which makes me think that's a him problem as well.
Mm-hmm. Punk main eventing if Punk did main event at WrestleMania, he wouldn't really care about it. He really wouldn't, because he got it.
That's what I'm saying.
But this situation
is tough.
The situation is very tricky. It's very, very tricky. Not gonna lie to you.
And in this whole conversation, I'm not defending WWE at all. We know what they've done wrong. We know they're not the best to work with. But I'm just saying that if it's happening in different companies as well, it's clearly
and there's
the
a
person.
problem.
Yeah.
Because let's look at it like this. You're not wanting to put over young talent, but that's what I think is happening. I heard stories that Punk didn't want to put over Hangman Page at Double or Nothing a couple months ago.
And it's not like he's putting over Orange Cassidy. He's putting over Hangman, who is the future or the present at that point, and the future of AEW. It's not like he's a nobody. The guy's already made. You putting him over wouldn't have been a bad thing.
It definitely wouldn't hurt It wouldn't hurt Punk, but I did think that Hangman. I think Hangman's title run was a little bit bleak, and he needed to drop the title a little bit. But
I agree.
I also wonder, what if Hangman did beat Punk at Double or Nothing?
I'm thinking.
Let's look at it like this.
Yeah.
I feel like CM Punk fans would have been so pissed off. B, Hangman would probably right now still be booked into oblivion. Or C, we'd see F or Hangman as a heel.
I think we would have seen Punk as a heel.
Oh.
I think that's what would have happened. And then Punk was at All Out.
Oh, that would have been that could be
good guy Punk can't beat Hangman, but heel Punk can. See, it writes itself.
It also stems to the rivalries that he's had, because the rivalries that he had with Kingston, Hangman, Mox, MJF, Darby I don't think Darby mentioned that he's protecting AEW from Punk because CM Punk is going to ruin the business and all that. But if you watch his rivalries that he's had closely, do you think that there's some truth to it?
In a way, but I don't know. It's difficult to say. I suppose come with all this news, it's very possible. If the guy on top is toxic, it could stem down the whole way down. So maybe he could have ruined the company. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
It is damn well interesting. But let us know what you guys think of this entire situation, because wow, this news has been keeping all of us on our toes and on the edge of our seats with our phones in our hands for the past, I don't know, say 12 hours since it's been released. So, you want to add on anything else about this issue?
I think we've said all we can. Now we just gotta wait and see.
Oh, but anyways, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to stomp that like button, stomp that subscribe button, and damn well stomp on that bell icon to be notified on when your favorite Stomp Boys appear. Thank you guys for watching, because you guys have just been too sweet.